welcome back. Another episode of Post-Fades Cheesesteaks, episode 116, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. We're up.
We got a little cred. We know what we're doing to some small extent.
I'd like to take a quick moment to crack open this Yingling in honor of our Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey, cheers.
3-0.
Cheers.
3-0. Cheers. Best
hey,
record, best Super Bowl odds in the NFC, tied with the Buccaneers.
Very worth it.
I just saw NFL on their Instagram put a thing up that they have the highest percentage to make the playoffs at 93%.
I mean,
our schedule is a joke, pretty much.
Yeah, but you know what? 2017, when we won the Super Bowl, we had the worst, a very easy schedule as well. Yeah, because it helps when you don't win your division, man. When you win your division, it is tough. It is. They come back at you hefty with a big hard schedule.
Yeah, it's crazy. The team looks legit. I mean, a lot of people are saying, hey, like they played, not good teams, but I think the Vikings and Lions prove that they're legit. They'll push for playoffs.
I was very surprised by the Vikings win because I honestly thought the Vikings were a playoff team. That one put us in. But let's go back to last week. We were both pretty happy. We were pretty happy. I don't know. I haven't gotten off the high of last week since, week 3, Sunday, week 3 came around. But we were extremely happy. And then they followed it up with another impressive win again. A game that I know the score was kind of close. You think about it, that game was over at halftime. It was, I mean, the little criticism you want to give, second halves, they're not super strong on, but these last 2 games have been decided at halftime.
But yeah, the thing, yes, the second half's been weak, but also the defense has been strong in those last 2 weeks with the second half. It's funny because I feel like every week I have a complaint, it's fixed. Like my first week, my complaint was around defense giving up too many yards. I thought Jalen was doing too much pre-snap stuff and he wasn't settling in. What happened week 2? Defense played a lot better. Jalen looked phenomenal. Week 3 rolls around. Defense. We were complaining about the defensive line not getting pressure. 9 sacks. It's nuts.
No, I think you hit it right on the head there. Honestly, that's what makes me think this team. I know it's 3-0. It's only 3 games, but this is what makes me think this team is actually legit. Literally, the complaints we made. I mean, I know I got on Hurts about not recognizing the blitz, and I know I got the defense on not tackling against lines. They've fixed that immediately. Hassan Reddick, we were saying, was completely out of position. And then he immediately would start rushing the passer, and it's just they're getting better. They're it's very obvious they're getting better. I just say the one going off that too, because Hurts obviously is going to be point 1A. Just the general how they're doing, win or loss, will always be the most important thing. But Hurts is going to be 1A this whole season. Dude keeps getting better, man. He's amazing. My favorite play, I'll tell you this, my favorite play was on the goal line. It was in, I want to say it was the first quarter, maybe second quarter. It was definitely first half. Okay. He reads something. He's calling audibles. I forget whoever's in the slide, the wide receiver, but he's making the calls at the line. They were on the 2-yard line. They were in the red zone. He's making the calls, sees something. And then immediately from there, it's snap the ball. A.J. Brown runs a slant, throws it to him, who's a man. They're just not getting the ball from him. Easy touchdown. That's what it should be. It should just be an easy touchdown. He read it perfectly. You saw him go out there. And then you just I have A.J. Brown. So I was like, all right, let me get an inside slap because it's A.J. Brown. He's got the hands of just unbearable strength. This is going to be easy. Beautiful. The whole thing was beautiful.
I think that was a 3rd and goal too. So that was
maybe it was. Huge... I remember it was in the red zone. He wasn't far from the end zone, but he made the call.
8 yards. Yeah.
He made the audible. It was very obviously he made the audible. He switched out of whatever it was. And this is what I was saying. It's it's one thing to see the pressure and make something out of it. It's you got to see it. You got to see it before it comes. You got to know, all right, I got to get this ball out of my hand. They're coming with the heat. And the first week I didn't see it. Ever since then, it's been never thought about it again.
Well, I'm trying to remember who. I just saw a post about it. The passing leaders in the NFL are it's Tua. I think Trevor Lawrence. Jalen's number 3. That's another young Herbert's 4, and then Joe Flacco is number 5.
Renaissance.
All the young guns.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's crazy because he only rushed for 25 yards. And it just goes to show he doesn't need he can throw for 300 and do very little with his feet, or he can throw for 200 and run for 100.
But the run game, we were never worried about the run game. We were last year they had the best running offense. We were never worried about that. We still aren't worried about that.
I also think that, the Redskins Commanders have a really strong defensive line, even though they had their injuries. So I assume they weren't going to focus on running the ball a lot, and I think Sanders only had like 40, 50 yards of rushing. So they had definitely a different game plan for that, but they just, like you said, AJ Brown, there was one play, if you remember, he caught it on it was like an out route or a slant, but he caught it, then did like a little sidestep and just boom, like got another 10 yards. I was like, amazing. So for him to be that big and be able to stop on a dime and just outrun people, I was like, this is a specimen.
The yards after catching them is amazing. And can we say we knew AJ Brown was awesome. He's been awesome since he's got here. Give a round of applause for freaking Devontae Smith, man.
Remember people called him out week 1, and then he's like, all right, hold my beer.
Deserved it. I mean, well, let's be honest. We drafted him. Everyone was ecstatic about him, in the draft. Immediately once that pick was done, everyone was ecstatic. This wasn't like, I don't know, second-guessing Jalen Reagor or J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. This was the Heisman winner. This was the guy you wanted at 6 before you traded back. You wanted him. You got him over a division rival. Great move. He had a great first season. And then we were like, man, Devontae, he's got the potential to be number 1, but he really needs someone else there. And then week 1, you got him someone else, and he just didn't show up. He was literally invisible. Week 2, he made a name, didn't really do too much. Oh, man, bro, kick down the door. Week 3. He was unstoppable. What he was doing. 156 yards and a touchdown at half. At half. That's when, I don't care what people say about second half or whatever. They took their foot off at half. I mean, I know we talked about this in the subscriptions you're looking at. At the end of the third quarter, I was putting red zone on. The game was already over. The game was over at half. Devontae Smith went out there and just was like, I'm the former Heisman winner, first overall pick. I am everything you thought I was. Let me just remind you one more time. Outstanding. It was outstanding. That whole game was just incredible. He just played to everything you would expect from him. Amazing. Really good to see. I mean, especially, you're right. People were coming for this guy's head in week 1 when he didn't show up.
I'm gonna give you a list of names.
Okay.
So we have Javonte Williams, Ezekiel Elliott, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones. Right.
Okay. Mishposh of different names. Okay.
Some talented running backs in there, though, right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Miles Sanders has more rushing yards than all of them.
Listen, it's pretty good.
It's early, but yeah, it's nice to see that he's.
Hey, but this is what we were saying, though. Like, there is no doubt that this running attack was going to be awesome. Like, the offensive line's amazing. Jalen Hurts is incredible in the rushing game. Like, they scored 4 touchdowns with 4 different people rushing on the week 1. This whole team can just run. I won't say it's number one running back, but the whole team. And last time we had this strong of a running back committee rushing approach, we won the Super Bowl. And it's really impressive to see. And you didn't have wide receivers like this. Alshon was good. Nelson was, had his moments. AJ Brown is a number 1. Devontae Smith is becoming a number 1. Mm-hmm. And even Zach Pascal, who was just, I think everyone was annoyed as soon as he got signed. Nothing against Zach, but let's be honest. How he made a lot of these veteran signings, 1-year deals, below average guys that he thought would be better. Like, I don't think Anthony Harris or Nelson or anything like that. Marquise Goodwin, any of those guys were really anything. But they brought in Pascal, and he plays a role, man. He made his presence felt. He's not just some one and done, veteran making more money than he's actually worth.
Yeah, but it's crazy to me to look at these numbers. We have AJ Brown 4th in receiving yards, and Devontae Smith is 11th.
Yeah, so it's truly amazing.
We could realistically end the season with 2 top 10 receivers in receiving yards and 2 players in the top 10, top 15 of rushing with Jalen and Miles if they keep feeding them. So
I got to be honest. I think even we haven't hit our ceiling. Like, I mean, I know we're 3-0 and we're dominating. I don't think we've hit the ceiling. The run game can definitely improve. That we already know is going to be money. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of their second half struggles is that, you know what, just let the offensive line take over. Let Kelsey, Lane, Dickerson, Malata, Silmala, let them just ball out and just run over people and just
Yeah.
run out the clock and just move the ball that way. I think the running game hasn't hit what we've seen them do last year and what they can do. And I think that the passing game still has potential. Like Dallas hasn't been very involved. This is the first week we saw Devontae Smith get involved. You know, Quez has his moments, but I think it's going to grow a little bit more. Jalen looked awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing to hate. This team looks amazing. It's they're improving on themselves too. First week they looked incredible on defense. Half the drives, the other half they didn't know how to tackle. We're seeing that elite production we saw in week 1, just an entire game's worth now. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very very happy with how this team is playing. Also surprised I know they just had a big game, but Fletcher Cox is in the top 10 in sacks. He's got 3 sacks. So
Man, listen, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, they
look different. Like Cox looks different this year. I don't know what it is, but
listen, they still got something. They still got something. Those old Bucks still got something. So now that I think we praised the Eagles a good amount, and then let's get to what we're all waiting. What did you think about Carson coming back? Well, what was your thoughts on Carson? I'll let you start this off.
It was very strange watching Eagles players tackling Carson Wentz. But man, like it's hard to. I'm not going to root against him. He still helped bring a Super Bowl to Philly. I don't care what people say.
Yeah, I agree.
He might have choked in the playoffs. Who knows? But he got that team prepared and got the wins under the belt to get that number 1 seed. So that is that. But he it's so evident how he's not changing the way he plays. Still hold on to the ball way too long. Indecisive with who he's thrown to, and then doesn't do anything with the ball. Just holds it and takes the sack. Like 9 sacks. That's not the line.
God, yeah, that's
maybe half is the line's fault, but you got.
I would say the first four, his offensive line was terrible, and they are
3
terrible
in a row.
Yeah, the first four where his offense is terrible. His offensive line is just awful. The next 5, that was Carson Wentz. That was Carson Wentz.
Yeah, it's
amazing. Like, I think back because we've done this podcast 160 episodes now. 116. So we're starting to build some history. I can remember being on this podcast with you, bitching and screaming and arguing, pissed off over the same things Carson Wentz would do that he just did this past Sunday, but with the Eagles. The guy has not changed. It's exactly the same thing all over again, but it's just on a different team. That guy has no pocket presence to save his life.
Oh, none.
He's taking he's got a perfect pocket. Interior rush is minimalized. He's on a 9-step drop backwards, and then the edge rusher's getting him. The guy just cannot read the pocket to save his life, and he just will never give up. He will never just chuck it down or hit a hot route or just get the ball out of your hand. He had one of his classic Carson fumbles, which that was like a trip back in time, seeing him fumble that ball. I was like, oh man, this is hitting me in my feels now. This is literally a trip down in the time machine.
It was weird. Yeah.
He doesn't. You said it's weird seeing Eagles players tackle Carson Wentz. It's weird seeing Carson Wentz fumble the ball and not being mad about it. He hasn't changed. He is the same exact player that he was when we wanted him out, and he's the same player. He looked brutal. He had a couple nice throws in garbage time that made you keep on thinking, oh, maybe Carson Wentz can do it. Maybe he was MVP that one year, or whatever. But then you watch the first 3 quarters and you're like, damn, this guy just can't read a pocket, cannot feel the pressure, and just will never give up, and has 9 sacks.
The funny part, I think, too, is that the ones who it was Graham had 2.5 and Cox had 1.5. So it was like his former teams when he was with the Eagles are the ones getting
they felt good. Oh, yeah.
I saw Cox was talking to him pregame. I saw they were probably talking about hunting or something, but I know Graham is said on radio before that he's they're Jalen's the guy, they've moved on from Carson. They don't bring it up anymore. So I don't know. I'm sure it felt good for him though to get those.
Oh, without a doubt. No,
And someone pointed out that he got the strip sack was very reminiscent of when he got Brady in the Super Bowl in the strip sack. He was like, oh.
Hey man, how nice it is that he's back. I mean, Fletcher's always, Fletcher's been downwards on his career, but he still has his moments. Graham being hurt last year, man, he's come back. He looks good. He still looks good. He's still got something. I mean, I think we're going to get the production out of Graham that we expected Barnett would give us, and thinking Graham would step back.
Yeah.
But as Barnett's getting hurt, Graham has continued to excel when we thought we were, writing him off.
Oh, I'm waiting for Sweat to step in and be a force. He got in on the sack party, but I mean, besides that game, he's been pretty quiet. So,
but you know what? He's still there. He's making his plays. Hassan Reddick is rushing the passer instead of coverage, so that's good. That makes sense. But can I take a moment and bring you back in time another time? Can we both, because I'm a big person. Yeah, I'm a big person. I can admit when I'm wrong. You are a little tough, but I can admit when I'm wrong.
All right.
And I can admit, because I was brutal. I had swords on my tongue every time I mentioned this guy's name.
Mm-hmm.
But can we take a moment? Because I think this is life coming full circle. And this week coming up will make it even, fulfill the full circle. Think back to where this team was 2 years ago, when the quarterback that just got sacked 9 times in a blowout loss on the Commanders was your quarterback, with a roster that wasn't very good, that was maxed out to the salary cap, who was paying more in dead cap money. Like, my God, Kenny Golladay is making like 16 mil this year, but he's at least going out there for 2 plays a game. We were paying so much dead cap money, and the guys that just weren't even giving us 2 plays a game. We were at the cap, which is dead cap, and we weren't very good, and we had no young talent. And then the architect of it all, who we thought would keep the Super Bowl run going, just fell completely on his face. Or maybe he just he knew what was going to happen. He took his lumps, took his pains, and knew that he was going to build something better. Because I got to be honest with you, Howie has built this team from where it was. We have got a young franchise quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who looks like the guy. We've got a team full of young talent. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, like, just all over the roster. AJ Brown's not old. He's the veteran in our wide receiver group, where you have Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins, who both look like players. Goddard's not old. The offensive line has a mixture of, like, Dickerson and Mulata, I think, are for real, and they're on the younger side. Your defense, Jordan Davis looks good. Dean hasn't touched the field yet, but we're still feel pretty good about him.
He's a man eventually.
You have elite corners. Yeah, but you have Slay and Bradbury, who are absolutely elite.
I'm very happy with Kaiser White's play too. So even TJ Edwards is playing.
TJ Edwards look good, but that's what I mean. Like, Howie's had these veterans like Steve Nelson, Anthony Harris. What's his face? The
McLeod.
McLeod's a good guy. McLeod was always good. The linebacker. The hell was his name? I forget
Singleton?
his name. No, the one we brought in a free agency that stunk.
Oh, the one from the Vikings that we cut in 2
weeks. Yes, whoever that guy was. Yeah, those veterans, like Anthony Harris, Steve Nelson, whoever that random linebacker is, we don't remember his name. Or, Bradbury, Kaiser White, these are guys you're bringing in on these 1-year prove-it deals, and they're playing pretty well. This reminds me of when you brought in Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount and those guys on 1-year prove-it deal.
Oh, what year was that?
But you know what the difference is? Like, that Super Bowl team was capped out, had no money, no young talent, because we still were fielding most of the Super Bowl team. But now we have so much young talent. We have 2 first-round picks next year. One might be a top 10 pick.
And we're the number one team in the NFC.
We might realistically win the NFC and still have a top 10 pick next year. And a pick to follow that, which I got to be honest, Howie has set this team up for so much success. I cannot give Howie enough credit, because I have ripped this man.
Remember 2 years ago when we were like deciding it's because it was going to be Howie or it was going to be Doug, and we were get rid of Howie. Doug's the man, and
no,
I feel like the right decision was made.
Yeah,
I mean, Doug's
nothing
out
against
there.
Doug.
I was out there in Jacksonville kicking ass. So,
but see, you know what? Me and you, and I think most of the people never thought that Doug and Howie were bad GMs or bad coaches. I think they both would have found success wherever they went. But I think that, one of them did have to go. Yeah. And, man, we gave a lot of heat. Howie has built a good team here.
Yeah, he really has.
Cap room. Look at the roster, man. the money you're paying AJ Brown to be your number one wide receiver this year and the best wide receiver this franchise has seen in 15 years was the money you were giving Alshon Jeffrey to not play.
Pretty much.
Like that, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, those were dark days, but he still managed to get us to the playoffs. We still saw the double doink. We still saw the playoff game against Seattle. Like, we never had to like bottom out like when we did with Reed moving on a chip. Like, we never went 4-12. We never had a complete loser of a season. Yeah, we were getting the playoffs last year, even in transition year. But how we managed to piece together a team without full-on rebuilding and doing it where it's, man, this team's set up better than I think I could have ever dreamed of. Honestly, like Carson was on a big contract right after that Super Bowl almost immediately. We have a guy that looks like the guy and he's still on a rookie deal. And the team is arguably better than that Super Bowl team. I don't think they're as deep. I think the Super Bowl team's better, but high end.
I don't know.
High end talent. The Super Bowl team has depth. This one has high end talent. AJ Brown's better
agree.
than all the wide receivers.
So's
Bradbury and Slay.
Because don't forget that Super Bowl team had a lot of big injuries and players had to step up.
Well, that's where the depth came in. We don't have that depth this year. Like, I don't think Dillard's going to be taking over if Milano went down.
You know what, Tim? That's a very smart thing you said. I'm impressed.
I usually only say smart things. I don't know why you're coming out of you by this.
No, that's a good point because I agree. Like, obviously, AJ Brown is light years better than.
Hey, we love Alshon
Jeffrey.
He was the number one. Alshon was the number one, but he wasn't this number one.
And Torrey Smith is
Torrey Smith,
better than Torrey Smith. I like both those players. I mean, I didn't like Alshon at the end of his career because he was an annoying little.
Well,
No, I like that, but yeah, it's just the talent. I agree. The talent is higher, but the depth was better Super Bowl year. But hey, this team, I don't want to. It's early still. I mean, we're going to face injuries at some point. Knock on wood. But I'm getting a very similar vibe with that Super Bowl team where like the players are like they're believing in this system, they're believing in the team. They're like a family again. Like that is so. I don't know how other teams because we're not around them as much, but that is so important in the success of these football teams. So we'll see. They're going to lose eventually. So that's when we have to see how they handle that, how they rebound. But I mean, they're going to keep rolling. I mean, we have Doug. So we had the Carson revenge game, the Doug Peterson revenge game, and then Zach Ertz revenge game is the week after that. So.
Oh, listen, trust me. There's a reason I brought up Howie is because Howie is having a month right now. If Howie he already embarrassed Carson Wentz. I was very, very against Howie, very venomous. I know you were too, so I'm glad.
Yeah, everyone was.
Yeah, you know that this was the big one because listen, we all love Jalen, and Jalen looks like that guy, but your guy had to go beat the other guy because. No one wanted Jalen in the second round when you just signed Carson, but he went and you just got to see it was perfect 360. Carson Wentz was the same player we wanted out of here. He hasn't changed. He's the same exact player as, like I said, go back to the podcast when we were yelling about Carson. I just couldn't stand him taking all these sacks, all these fumbles, having no presence. And he did it again, but on his third team. Just beautiful. But Howie has set this up very nicely. I got to say, he's put it together. The team's very well. I'm very happy. I mean, they haven't been challenged yet. You're right, because they've kind of been leading the whole time. But the weaknesses they had the first 3 weeks, they've already started correcting them. And part of that, part of those bad teams after the Super Bowl is we were hanging on to Super Bowl guys too long. Alshon was here for too long. Mm-hmm. You could say, Barnett even was here for too long. McLeod maybe, Ertz maybe. Yeah. You had these guys that you needed to move on from the Super Bowl, and they didn't do it. Look at the guys that are here from the Super Bowl. You got Cox, Graham, Kelsey, and Lane. They're not like just here because they won a Super Bowl. They're here because they're fucking good. They're fucking good. That's why they're here, and that's the way they should have done it after the Super Bowl. Is cut bait with the people you knew you didn't need. These guys are pillars. Like they're out there balling.
Yeah, well said. I think it's exciting time to be an Eagles fan. And they have a pancake of a schedule. So as long as they take care of business and continue to grow and show progress, I think it's going to be.
They everything's setting up nicely for them. I have literally no criticisms. It's rare. All right. You know what? I do have a criticism. I do. The punt game. This fucking punter, man. He's just. Does anyone explain to him that he doesn't want to kick in the end zone? Is he like, oh, what's that big colorful rectangle you try to shoot there?
I'm more concerned with Covey, the punt returner, the track star.
Yeah,
he looks like he's getting obliterated on every punt. I haven't seen his speed yet because he can't find a hole. But
he looks like he's really fast, but doesn't actually understand how to return a punt.
He looks like a college freshman sneaked his way onto the field. And
okay, going off that, I think the fact that we haven't ripped any of the coaches, even Gannon, Gannon put it together defensively this week. What the hell are we doing with Devontae Smith back there? I don't care if Kobe what are we doing? Like what is this? There's no reason. Put Quez back there if you're going to put anyone back there.
Yeah. My last point on the Eagles, because there were 15 other matchups that went on.
That's true.
We have 3 weeks of the season done. Week 1, Zach McPherson won Special Teams Player of the Week. Week 2, Darius Slay won Defensive Player of the Week.
Oh.
Week 3, Brandon Graham won Defensive Player of the Week. So
wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we got some ballers on the team,
All right, well, since the Eagles are incredible, and this is like a weekly thing now that I know about, who wins Player of the Week this week?
We're playing the Jags.
I got my guess because we haven't done. I actually didn't realize that until you told me it till right now. But we haven't had an offensive player of the week. We've had. Listen, Jalen's put up a couple offensive player of the week.
I think Jalen or
I think Jalen. I think Jalen puts one together that he shows off.
But I also think this is the Jaguars game is going to be an AJ Brown game. I think he's going to go off again. Yeah, I think he's going to have a multiple touchdown game.
Okay, so this is like. AJ Brown's like slowly just like, yeah, I am as good as you thought I was. And then this is the game where he's like, I'm even better than what you thought I was.
I love the Batman capes. They're so funny.
They're awesome. They're incredible.
So funny.
It reminds me of when the wide receivers were doing all those crazy dances and celebrations on the Super Bowl run. Like this is week 3 and we're already pulling out the Batman cape on the sideline. I love it. Love it. It's such a cool nickname. And the fact that they're all involved. It makes me feel like Quez Watkins is going to be an impact player the whole year. He had
2 huge PI calls against him that pushed us down the field.
Listen, man, that is his role. Run downfield
as fast as you can and see if they'll grab you.
But see, this is the problem with the other Eagles is we never had a number 1 guy to like take advantage of that. It was just like, no, run as fast as you possibly can and then maybe catch the ball because you're the best player on the team. Like we don't really have much. No. Just run as fast as you want down the field. Just keep running. Just do it. That's fine. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith will make up for that. And maybe when we see Dallas Goedert, Dallas Goedert game could be coming because that was a nice touchdown. He gave a little
shimmy.
He gave a little. What did Joe Hurst say? A little freaky on the outside. He gave him a little freaky. It was a lot to bring home, and it was nice. I think his big game's coming, but I think player of the week we're looking at Jalen. I think it all comes together. He's on everyone's radar. And he gives us the player of the week this time.
He deserves it. I'll say AJ Brown just to be different. So
fair enough. We appreciate you being different.
Of course. All right. So love our birds. Talk about them all day. But touch on some of the other games that happened this past weekend. So we had Thursday night doozy, Steelers and the Browns. Browns won 29-17. I can see Mitch Trubisky getting benched any day now.
Yeah, I think that game was exactly what we expected it to be. Limited offense, Thursday night game, Trubisky stinks.
Yeah. Pretty interesting game against the Bills and the Dolphins. The Bills had a lot of injuries. They lost both their safeties. Hyde's out for the year now. Josh Allen had a weird game where he was like, had a couple balls just slipped out of his hand. Their time management sucked once again, but Dolphins put out the win, 21-19. They stay undefeated.
Very true. Good game.
Bengals took care of the Jets 27-12. Got their first W. I am never picking the Raiders again until they win. They lost to the Titans 24-22. They are the only 0-3 team in the league.
Team. Weird. I was actually a lot higher on them than what might get them because they're in a tough division. Yeah. They also were a playoff team. They got a harder schedule. I think it's going to catch up.
They've had a pretty rough beginning to their schedule. I'll give them that, but you got to win these games.
Yeah.
Boring game. Saints and the Panthers. Panthers won 22-14. Get their first win of the season. Saints need to keep losing, baby, so we get that good first round pick.
Listen, number 1 in the NFC, top 10 pick. It's going to be like when the Celtics were going to the playoffs and drafting top 3 with the Nets picks. It's going to be beautiful.
Remember how last year we went on a phase where the Eagles kept winning, and you would pick against them because it was good luck. Maybe we should pick against the Saints so that it's good luck. But
can I just say, can we revisit that now that you mention it? And we're reminiscent about Howie and all that. I remember rooting against the Eagles that Washington game when if we won, we would have hurt our draft stock. It makes it look even better and better. You pulled Jalen's the guy, and then you ended up with Devontae Smith, and you move back and all this. Things keep looking better, baby. You're a top team in the NFC with 2 first-round picks next year. I am okay with the fact that I've rooted against them for a quarter. Yeah, Nate Sudfeld, baby. That's the most positive thing he brought to Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. Ravens beat the Patriots 37-26. I think Lamar Jackson has like 12 touchdowns already.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's trying to get that big bag. He's going to get paid, whether it's the Ravens or somebody else. He's going to get paid.
It'll be the Ravens.
Vikings and Lions had a great game. That went down to the wire. Vikings won on a busted coverage. Scored a touchdown with like 40 seconds left or something like that.
Can I remind you that I told you that the Minnesota Vikings were must-see TV last year?
You did say that. You did.
They haven't changed. They're still must-see TV.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's see what else we got. Eagles, obviously, beat the Commanders 24-8. Honestly, that game was 24-0. And Carson had under 100 passing yards, and then they had a garbage time score and that weird safety. But, yeah. Colts got their first win of the season, beat the Chiefs 20-17. That was I forget what really happened in that game. Chiefs just were struggling on offense a little bit there, but
hey, listen, these games, you got to look back, like at the end of the year when the Chiefs are 13-3, we're gonna be like, yeah, they're awesome. But then you wonder, where was that one of those losses 4 times? And you're like, oh yeah, the stupid one they lost to the Colts. Yeah, that one. That's one of those games. They should have no business losing, but they lost.
Yeah. The Texans continued to be surprisingly competitive. I feel like they've been in every game that they've played this year. Lost to the Bears on a field goal, 23-20. I mean, neither of those
stink too.
That the Bears
they stink.
Fields does not look good. I don't know if it's the offense.
What do you expect them to do? That team is awful.
Oh, their line's trash. Yeah, they don't have weapons, but
that's what I mean. Like, you're over here congratulating the Texans for sticking with a terrible team. I think Justin Fields has got talent. I don't know if he's the guy, but I think he's got talent. I think he's on a horrific roster. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
this team stinks.
The best thing the Bears got going is some studs on defense, and Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery are a great tandem at running back. But beyond that, probably the surprise of the week for me, the Jaguars thrashed the Super Bowl. Tim's Super Bowl pick.
I know.
The Chargers 38 to. I mean, the Broncos look pretty bad too. They were my pick. So, but yeah, the Chargers won 38-10. Or the Jaguars won 38-10 over the Chargers. Crazy. Crazy.
I don't understand how you start Justin Herbert in that game. I'm baffled.
His
the guy. Him. And I was to say the guy couldn't even breathe, and you put him out there in week 3. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is the thinking there? We heard on Saturday or Friday he got a pain injection shot. I'm like thinking, is this the same team doctor that punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung? This is the guy that you're trusting? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. When you're putting out like a battered quarterback like that, like they had a better chance winning with Chase Daniel than they did with Herbert, who can't breathe. Don't understand that. But I mean, all props to the Jaguars. I just don't understand what the Chargers are thinking.
Yeah, it's crazy. Jaguars look actually pretty good.
They do.
We'll see. We'll see how they fare against the Birds.
This is going to be a good matchup for both of them. This is good to see how good are each team. If the Eagles go out and smack the Jaguars like they did the first 2 weeks, then this team is something. If the Jaguars can compete, they don't have to win, but if they compete, then the Jaguars could win that division.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm actually going to the game, so that'll be. Me and Nick are going, so it'll be a good time. Yeah,
good stuff. Well, great game.
Oh yeah, I'm hyped. So that'll be fun. Another game that happened, the Rams took care of the Cardinals 20-12. I will say the Cardinals had that one game against the Raiders where they were losing the whole game, looked like crap, then came back with like 2 minutes left. But beyond that, they look like they're in trouble. They don't look very good right now.
They don't.
I mean, maybe it's because they don't have DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe because their defense is really bad all of a sudden. I mean, not all of a sudden. They weren't great, but they're
Listen,
really bad.
let me just say something.
Okay.
We mentioned Howie already. Remember when we gave Carson Wentz the massive contract?
Mm-hmm.
And then the team started to get worse. And then we had a whole bunch of these veterans that weren't really that good, like, JJ Watt, AJ Green. Kyler just got paid. They couldn't really upgrade the roster. His team probably wasn't that good to begin with. They weren't coming off a Super Bowl and Carson got paid. They came off of a very disappointing first round exit in the playoffs and then paid Kyler when they probably shouldn't have. His team looks like they're starting to feel the effects of a quarterback that isn't that great and is costing them a ton of money and they can't improve the roster. So I don't really think, we'll see what happens. Maybe Hopkins comes in and saves the day, but this team's got a lot of problems.
Yeah. The funny part is all these primetime games were pretty garbage. But before we get to those, we did have the Falcons beat the Seahawks 27-23. No one cares about that game. The Packers beat the Buccaneers like we both predicted, 14-12. Tom Brady does not look great. I mean, I know he has these down 3 receivers and the line's injured and all this and that, but they look rough. But I mean, Rodgers is looking a little better.
I mean, we said that the Falcons Seahawks were a game that no one cares. If it wasn't for Brady and Aaron Rodgers, this Packers Buccaneers game was one of those I couldn't care. Like this, it was such a boring game.
Followed by a phenomenal score of 14-12. We had the Sunday night game was Broncos and 49ers, and the Broncos.
Oh man, talk about it. That was painful.
Broncos squeaked out a win 11-10. Ew. I will never understand. It has to be the play calling. Because I've seen Russ play for 10 years or 9 years, how long he's been in the league, and he's never looked this bad. Last year he had the finger injury, so I was going through some stuff with that. But like, they're calling plays where like his either his check down or his option is to on 3rd and 18 to throw a 5-yard out to a player who's going to catch it and get tackled immediately. I'm like, and it happened like twice or 3 times. I was like, this is not how are you going to get yards if you're throwing behind the line and there's defenders right there waiting. What is this play calling?
I couldn't agree with you more. 2 things I wanted to go over with that. Yeah. Hackett, I'm not sold on Hackett. Russ, though, man, he had 8 3-and-outs. It's the most ever in his career. Now, the play calling looked rough, but there was a couple times Russ looked rough. He took that sack to take him out of field goal range. Like, throw the ball away and you're kicking a field goal, but he took that sack and they were out of range. Let me ask you something. Let me ask you. Put your thinking hat on for this one. I know you like to take your time off, with some questions. If Aaron Rodgers was signed to the contract that he has now before the offseason and there was no free agency or trade rumors, would Nathaniel Hackett be hired by the Denver Broncos right now? I know they didn't get Rodgers, but let's be honest. The rumors were going wild and everyone thought Rodgers was on the move. He ended up signing a big contract that I think people were surprised by. But they also hired his offensive coordinator the year that he was available. Does Nathaniel Hackett get this job if Aaron Rodgers had his deal going into offseason?
I don't think it changes anything.
No, really? You know what? LaFleur is a young guy. LaFleur is a very young guy who's very smart on offense. And you had an MVP quarterback. Like, why does that make me think that the offensive coordinator is that genius? Like, maybe a different circumstance, but go look at a guy like Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy, I think, is a very good coach. I think he's got a lot of credit for what Mahomes does, but let's be honest. Andy Reid is an incredible offensive coach. He was with the Eagles, and now what he's done with the Chiefs is amazing. Patrick Mahomes is also awesome. Eric Bieniemy has not gotten a job. He also didn't have, Patrick Mahomes possibly going to a new team. I think Nathaniel Hackett might have gotten a little more job interest because his MVP quarterback was looking for a new team. I think similar situation, LaFleur is nowhere near Andy Reid. So maybe I'm discrediting Andy and not giving enough credit to him. But I think that LaFleur is pretty smart that, most of the success they were having was more of him than it was Hackett.
Perhaps. But yeah, both those teams looked a little rough. Jimmy G, just the most blatant safety I've ever seen. Walking along the whole
Orlovsky safety. Yeah. Good for him.
And then we had the butt punt. You see? Did you
I was
see
just
that
saying
one?
this was a good redemption week for ESPN, former quarterback turned ESPN anchors. Orlovsky had his, running out of the end zone punt, our safety, and then we had not the butt fumble, but the butt punt.
The butt punt, yeah. I knew that hurt. That did not feel good.
Yeah, it was something else. I remember my buddy Kurt. I was ripping him because it's like, dude, just watching that. Like, or no, I'm sorry. I apologize. It was in the Dolphins game. My buddy Worm and Chad, who I probably met at the wedding, and my Florida roommates. I was like, what am I watching? It looked like he just kicked it over his head backwards. Like I was like, it was just so obnoxiously awful.
And then the last game on Monday night was Cowboys and Giants. It was a pretty garbage game. Ending got, I guess, a little more exciting. I will say I was pissed because it looked like I was going to hold on to a fantasy victory. And then the two players I needed to not scored in the fourth quarter in Saquon and CeeDee Lamb. And then I got just obliterated after that. So
that happens.
Yeah. So Cowboys won that 23-16. 2-0 without Dak. Interesting. But
this isn't the first time they've had to win games without Dak. So, but another time, another moment. So roll me in because we want the transition here. I know we're in a good mood, but we're going to start with the duds this time. So roll me into the duds list. Give me a little pop and sizzle.
All right. Well, capping off a fantastic week by some and some not so fantastic. We do have our studs and duds list. And yes, starting off, we'll crack open the duds because they were Tim.
So ready? Because there's a reason we did this transition. You caught me off guard there, but this transition's a little smoother than what I picked it up with.
Okay.
Because we were just talking about this Monday Night Football game.
Yes.
Giants versus Cowboys. We were just talking about this game, so I figured I rolled right into the dud list because the first dud we have here, number 3, came from that game.
I wonder
listen, welcome to the NFL, my friend. Welcome to the NFL, Evan Neal.
Ooh.
That guy was a turnstile. DeMarcus Lawrence had 3 sacks, and they were all on Evan Neal.
I want to interrupt you real quick. I love when a lineman plays poorly and they're referred to as a turnstile. It's so funny to me. But carry on.
It's a great metaphor.
It's such a great
metaphor.
Yeah.
Now I will prefix this with Andrew Thomas. I think was also on the duds list last year, right around the same moment, because he also did the same thing that Evan Neal just did. But Andrew Thomas looks pretty fucking good. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, when it comes to Giants offensive linemen, I'm just so naturally programmed to think they're probably terrible. And Andrew Thomas is the only one in the last 5 years that is starting to change that notion because I think he can play. But Evan Neal, unfortunately, you're still in that category of you were drafted by the New York Giants, so I assume you suck at football because most of the other offensive line before you did. But yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence had his welcome to the NFL moment, had 3 sacks on homeboy. And if that wasn't enough, final drive of the game, the Giants, we didn't think they were going to win, but they had their moment, and he had a false start that was just backbreaking on that final drive. So NFL rookie, I think he'll be all right because Andrew Thomas, I think, had the same moment, but iron sharpens iron, and I make players better, even when they're on the rivals team. So when I had Andrew Thomas on the dud list last year at this moment, he became really good. Evan Neal, I hope he doesn't, but I usually motivate and drive passion in everyone. So Evan Neal's my first dud, and he probably will be much better next year.
Fair enough.
Moving on. So we don't have a rookie in this one. This wasn't a cop-out, easy welcome to NFL moment. This was actually a hell of a guy. A lot of people had high expectations. Dakota, you probably drafted him in the first round of your fantasy draft, didn't you?
I mean, I don't know who you're talking about, so carry on.
He seems like a first-round fantasy draft Dakota kind of guy.
Okay.
In a game where his superstar franchise quarterback couldn't breathe and his number 1 wide receiver was out in the game and didn't play, the guy put up 4 rushes for 5 yards, 8 receptions for 48 yards, no touchdowns. It looked really disappointing the entire season. He's only got 80 rushing yards on the entire season, no touchdowns, and 139 receiving yards. So my man who was supposed to step up and didn't in a game that was a brutal loss, we got Austin Eckler at number 2.
Oh, okay.
Tell me how many fantasy teams you have him in.
0.
Oh, really? Okay. He seemed like an easy first-round fantasy draft pick for Dakota.
I took I don't remember. I know I skipped on him. I took Henry and CMC. I know that much. So
he's disappointing. He is really. And a moment when you need to step up. Keenan Allen was out. Justin Herbert couldn't breathe, and he did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Moving on. So this one, I don't think you're surprised. I could probably have asked you going into this week who's the number one dud. You would have told me. A guy that I've seen, it's like a tragic comedy almost. And it's 2 years in the making. The guy that just went and gave me exactly what I saw last time I saw him. 9 sacks, just complete, just misunderstanding of a pocket, no sense of rush, and a fumble on top of that. We have Mr. Welcome Back, Carson Wentz, who just went and had himself a day. Fumble, 9 sacks, and his ass kicked on by his former team. So Carson, because he gave me exactly what I saw the last couple of weeks with the Eagles, he's my number one dud.
Yeah, I mean when you take the 9 sacks, that's
it's just
realistically he had under 100 yards the whole game. I think it was negative at one point. So
yeah, he's pretty terrible. I mean, 4 sacks to the offensive line, 5 sacks to Carson Wentz, easy, easy. All right, let's roll into the good stuff. You in a good mood now? You got your negative energy out of the way?
I got beer. I have to be in a good mood. So
I feel that. So my first guy on this stud list, this is a guy who, unlike Austin Eckler, was a running back that stepped up in his moment. The number one running back went down with an injury, and he went and balled. He had 179 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns, 7.9 yards per rush. Shout out Flurry, who loves a good yards per rush stat. Mm-hmm. But in a game that they had to win, and if they probably don't win it without him. So my man, Khalil Herbert, stepping up when David Montgomery went down. Yeah, listen, he stepped up. He made the game known. Montgomery went down, one of their big players, and he stepped up and performed, and they won a game they should have won against another bad team.
I will say it felt like Cry Me a River by Justin Timberlake was playing for my fantasy teams because I had Devontae Smith and Khalil Herbert on my bench, both with over 30 points. So
see, that's the type of fantasy managing I would expect from someone that drafted Austin Eckler in the first round. But
yeah.
On to the next one. So I wanted to take this moment. What time do you have? What's the time right now?
6:39 p.m.
Is that Eastern Standard? Yeah,
Eastern Standard, baby.
So mark this as the moment that anything good to say about Doug Peterson has now finished. Because I'm going to say one last nice thing, and then it is Doug Peterson hate week. You're going to the game. Mm-hmm. I feel like I shouldn't have to ask you this, but are you cheering or booing?
I'll cheer.
You should cheer.
Yeah. You got to see what is the Super Bowl. What do you mean? How am I going to boo him?
Oh, listen, I'm on your side. I'm just asking you because you're going to the game. This should be a standing ovation.
Yeah, he didn't quit on the team. He was kind of fired and told.
Like you said, it was Howie or Doug, and we went with Howie, and Howie did a great job. Yeah, this should be a standing ovation, and only a standing ovation. So that's why I'm going to take this moment. Number 2 on the stud list, we got Dougie P, and this is the last nice thing I'm going to say about Dougie P for the rest of the week, because Dougie P has got 2 wins with the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's half the amount of wins that they've had the last 2 years combined. If he beats the Eagles, he's already matched last year's win total. This is what happens when you have a generational talent, though, in Trevor Lawrence, who also looked really good, and don't have Bozo the Clown coaching him.
Yeah, I saw a stat, and then someone was like, they're like, Doug Peterson has more wins than Urban Meyer did, and it's only week 3.
Oh, yeah, Doug is immediately. We knew. I don't think anyone really gave up on Trevor Lawrence because we didn't forget how good he was in college.
Oh, no.
He just had Bozo the Clown coaching him his first NFL season. Doug Peterson was the guy he needed. He came in, steadied the ship, told him how to run a true offense, a true locker room. And Dougie P has already righted the ship. The biggest laughingstock in the NFL as a franchise, I think it's pretty close between like the Lions, the Jaguars, and the Houston Texans. But Doug Peterson has immediately turned that franchise around in 3 weeks. So my man, Dougie P, who's coming back home and should get nothing but a standing ovation, Dakota. I'm looking at you. You better get yourself together.
I got it. I got you.
This is the last nice thing I'm going to say about the man. So you clock at 11:42 or 6:42 Eastern Standing, 11:42 London time. Oh. This is the last good thing I say. Last good thing I say about Dougie Peterson. But the guy had a hell of a week. Put the team together. Now I hope we ruin everything for him.
Okay. And who's number 1?
Number 1, we got Mr. Things are working out pretty well for people that bet on themselves. Aaron Judge is about to break the American League home run record, which is like 50 years old on a free agent year.
He's nuts.
He's insane. I mean, I honestly can't think of anything else. But are we about to see Lamar top that? Because Lamar is off to The man had 107 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, 5 offensive touchdowns against a Bill Belichick defense.
It's a couple, yeah.
Who the hell has 5 touchdowns against a Bill Belichick defense?
Lamar Jackson, that's who.
Exactly. I mean, listen, Aaron Judge is setting in stone what a contract year was. Lamar Jackson might beat that. And I think the most impressive contract year we've ever seen was also another Baltimore Raven when Joe Flacco won the Super Bowl in his free contract year. But Lamar is giving him a run for his money. I think the Ravens signed him ultimately, but 5 touchdowns against Bill Belichick every week. Money.
It is money. Yeah, he's nuts. That being said, we will transition into the Too Much Whiz segment. So, Timothy, I want to hit you with an early one here.
Go ahead.
Too Much Whiz.
Okay.
The Philadelphia Eagles will end the season as the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Oh, without a doubt. I have to say yes.
Really?
I have to say yes.
Damn. Okay.
There's no reason to think they won't. The Buccaneers have a ton of problems. I'm not convinced by the Packers without Devontae Adams. The Rams, I think, are pretty good, but we've already hit on how hard of a schedule they're going to have defending, Super Bowl champion. I think the Eagles have given you no reason to think they're not. They have an easy schedule. Those other 3 teams that I mentioned don't because they won their division and they have their own problems. They're the best team in the NFC. I'm expecting them to win out.
Fair enough. Second, Too Much Whiz. We have seen, unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys win 2 straight games in the absence of Mr. Dak Prescott. Too Much Whiz. Jerry Jones made a joke about there being a QB controversy. So I'm asking you, if the Cowboys continue to win without Dak Prescott, do they rush him right back in as soon as he's good to go? Do we have a controversy?
I say absolutely not. I mean, listen, Jerry would make a controversy out of nothing, but there's really no way. Dak Prescott broke. This isn't the first time we're seeing Cooper Rush. Dak broke his ankle, what was it, last year or 2 years ago? And we had to see Cooper Rush plenty, and he stunk. I am not worried. You beat the Giants. Relax.
This one's a little tricky for you. So, Raiders are 0-3.
Okay.
Made a huge trade, a huge financial investment in Mr. Devontae Adams to pair him with his former college roommate, college QB. Too Much Whiz. This will be Derek Carr's last season as a Raider if they miss the playoffs.
Too much whiz. I think
so?
As long as I don't see McDaniels developing his own quarterback. I said this going into before the season. McDaniels wasn't the type of guy to develop Tim Tebow. He's the type of guy to come in with a veteran established quarterback like Derek Carr and turn it into a very exciting offense. I'm not writing off the Raiders yet. I was a little higher on them than other people going into the season. They played 3 tough games.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chargers are good. The Cardinals, I mean, we ripped them a little bit, but they're not a bad team. And the Titans were a playoff team last year. Like, these are 3 playoff teams from last year.
True.
I think they'll be okay. I think they've still too many weapons. Waller's good. Devontae Adams is still Devontae Adams. Renfro's been hurt, but he'll play. I think that Derek Carr's the guy. I think they get better, and I think Derek Carr's the guy next year too.
Yeah, fair enough. So with that being said, we will jump right into our power rankings, which we have some significant moves going on in these. So we'll start off at number 10. And I can tell you with every being in my body that I did not think this team would have ever made our top 10 list.
Yeah.
But we have the 2-1 Jacksonville Jaguars, who just beat a potential Super Bowl contender in the Chargers at number 10. Jacksonville, baby.
Hey, listen, Dougie P, man. That's why he's on the stud list. That's the last nice thing we're going to say about him.
That defense is young and fast, and Trevor's playing really well. So, hey, they're doing something right. And, hey, Christian Kirk's playing well. So
that is true, yeah.
Earning his money. All right. Number 9, we have the Chargers, even though they are 1-2. But, obviously the injury to Herbert's, pretty significant. So we'll see how he handles his recovery, if he's able to play this week. But the talent is obviously there. That team is loaded. They should be winning games. But they also play the Texans, so they should handle business. But number 8, we have the Buccaneers. Like I kind of mentioned before, Tom Brady looks a little long in the tooth all of a sudden. I think it also has to do with injuries to their team. Their offense is in shambles. The defense will be strong throughout, but they're definitely they're definitely reeling a little bit here.
No wide receivers, no offensive line. I mean, Tom Brady at 45 can make up for one of those, not both of them.
That's true. Number 7, we have the Rams. They're just a weird team right now. Obviously going to be right in the playoffs a week, fine, but
tough schedule out. Everyone wants them every single week. They're the defending champs. They'll be okay though.
Yeah. Number 6, we have the Green Bay Packers, who beat Tom Brady. They look a little better now. Receivers still are a huge question mark, but their defense is looking good again, so that should be that. Number 5, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Looked like they had a little bit of a sideline meltdown between Mahomes and Bieniemy, but hey, they gotta work their things out. Better do it in the beginning of the season than at the end of the year. So
yeah, it's definitely one of those games when they're 13-4. This is when we look back and like, oh, that's where they got one of those losses.
Yeah. Number 4, we have the who do we have? Oh, the Baltimore Ravens coming in hot. They've been just putting up points like crazy. Lamar's balling. He's probably my MVP candidate right now.
Yeah, he's
him and Jalen, but they're looking good. Number 3, we have the Bills. They had a lot of injuries in that game. They're still one of the best teams in the league, in my opinion. Probably still the best, but had to slide them back for the loss because we do have 2 undefeated teams in our top 2. Now, do we pull an audible in the middle of the show and change our 2 to number 1, or do we keep our
No, we keep. Listen, we are homers. We do root for the home team, but I mean, listen, hats off to the Dolphins because they did knock off the top team. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
Like it was. I mean, the Bills were missing half their defense, but the Dolphins still went and beat one of the best teams in football. You have to give them the respect. I mean, the Eagles have given you every reason to be number 1, but the Dolphins went and knocked off the top dog. So that's the tiebreaker there. So I think that's why it's fair to say the Eagles number 2 power rankings, but best team in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dolphins, I'll give them number 1 right now. I mean, listen, they knocked off top dog, so we'll keep them top dog in the NFL.
Yeah.
But look at this. Eagles at number 2 in week 3.
I posted I think it was after week 1. I posted a poll and I said is because we had him at number 7 after the game against Detroit. And I was like, is 7 too high? Or maybe it was last week. I don't remember. Like, is 7 too high? Whatever. And I mean, obviously, there's a lot of Eagles fans that follow me. So, because friends. But everyone was saying, no, that's accurate. They're good. But I didn't think that we would be at any point in this, season where, I thought they'd make top 10, but I didn't think they'd be in the top 3. Let alone 2. So I'm hyped. It's a good time to be a Birds fan. So
listen, they still look like the best team in the NFC. So we'll see what happens going forward. But right now they look like the best team in the NFC. So speaking of going forward, roll into our picks for next week. So I think we got some exciting this week. We've got decent Thursday night game, if I remember correctly.
Dolphins and Bengals. Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid one. So we'll start. You go first, and then I go, and then the next game it's me, then you. So who you liking?
I think the Dolphins are legit. I don't think they're a bad team. They made a lot of offseason splashes. Tua looks great. The Bengals are still figuring things out, but I think the Dolphins keep the momentum going and pull off a win here.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think they're on. I don't think they've peaked yet. I mean, they're a team with a lot of big free agents and kind of a young team, which we expect them to peak and have a little, down, but it's not going to be now. I think they pull off another win and the whole hysteria kicks off.
I think the Cincinnati played relatively well against the Jets, and I think the Dolphins are going to be brought back down to earth a little bit. So I'll take the Bengals at home.
Fair enough. All right, fair enough.
Next game we got is the Vikings at the Saints. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to root for any team that's playing against the Saints. And the Vikings look like they got back on their rebound game last week. So I'll take the Vikings.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. I mean, this is a London game, by the way. Shout out the.
Are you going?
I'm not. You know what I got circled? who is it? The Broncos versus the Jaguars, I think it is.
Oh, okay.
That's also, there's 3 London games this year. And this one, I knew about this one. It wasn't blowing me over, but there's a couple other good games that are nice that I'm thinking about. But yeah, I think that the Saints stink. I'm pretty confident about that. I think the Vikings, who I thought were a playoff team before we played them, are still pretty decent. So I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Okay. Next game we have is the Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions.
I mean, this is kind of the cellar dwellers, but the Seahawks stink. They've given me a lot of reasons to think they stink. The Lions have shown fight. I'm going to go with the Lions.
All right. I will also go with the Lions. I think they're a solid team. Like I said in our beginning, that I think they're going to get above that 500 or close to it. So I'll take the Lions. Next game, Jets and Steelers. You know what? Part of me wants to pick. Yeah, part of me wants to pick the Jets, but then the other part of me is like, I feel like Steelers will grind this game out with the run. They'll just feed Najee Harris for 50 carries. So I'll take the Steelers. Know what?
I saw Mr. Trubisky. Mr. Trubisky stinks. I'm going to take the Jets. The Jets. Joe Flacco's out there, renaissancing his career. So I'm going to take the Jets.
He really is. Yeah. All right. The next game we have Bears at the Giants. So that's a fun one. Who you got?
Oh, that is vomit inducing. I think that the Bears are on a downwards. Like, we're talking about 2 terrible teams, but I think the Browns are on the decline where the Giants are kind of on the rise. I don't know. I'm going to take the Giants, but again, this is like saying which of these turds are the prettiest.
Fair enough. I'll take the Bears. Just fuck it.
Fair enough. Take one for the team. Take one for the team.
Take one for the team. Next game is Titans at Colts, and this one's interesting because both these teams really need a win to keep pace in their division. But you know what? I think the Colts, they're feeling good off that Chiefs win, and they're gonna ride it out until the Titans can figure out how to use Derrick Henry again. I think.
Talk about use their star running back. I hope the Colts can figure out how to use Jonathan Taylor. That guy's done anything yet. The Colts are the weirdest team. They're 1-1-1. They lost and tied 2 brutal games to then go beat one of our top 5 teams. Doesn't make any sense. I'm going to take the mystery team. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think they beat the Titans. I was higher on the Colts going into this year than Titans. I don't know what the hell the Colts are, but I'm going to take them.
All right. You said Titans you're taking?
I'm taking the Colts.
Colts, okay. Next game is Chargers at the Texans. I have no idea who you might pick in this one.
Oh, this is a bounce back game. I think Justin Herbert's going to be able to breathe, so I'm saying LA.
Yeah, I'm not even going to think twice. Texas have been competitive, but I'll take the Chargers here.
Yeah, I'm not going to think too hard.
Browns at the Falcons. I think the Browns continue to play well. I don't think the Falcons are that good, so I'll take the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons stink. Myles Garrett did get in a car accident, so maybe that makes me wonder. But the Browns are just so much better than the Falcons, throughout their roster. So I'm going to go Browns.
Alrighty. Let's see. Then we have Commanders at the Cowboys.
This one's tough because I think they're both strong in the same spot and terrible in the same spot. Both of them have very impressive defensive lines. Like, they get pressure, but both of their quarterbacks are terrible. I think that the Commanders come back from getting embarrassed and they go win this one. Because suddenly Jerry Jones is telling people like me and you that there's a quarterback controversy, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know why you would give almost $500 million to Dak Prescott and then act like there's a quarterback controversy. The Commanders, I think, win this one, and we all remind ourselves that Cooper Rush stinks.
Yeah, that was literally my storyline for this game. Cooper Rush comes back down to earth. I feel like a Ron Rivera team that got embarrassed like that would come back with a little bit of vengeance. So
yeah,
I'll take Washington as well.
They showed some good aspects, but it's just they played. I mean, this makes me feel giddy, but they played an elite team who just ran over them.
That they are. Speaking of an elite team, Jaguars at the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll be there screaming my lungs out for my Birds.
Go ahead. Since you're going to be there, what are we doing?
Well, it is my pick anyways, but yeah, I'm taking the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Peterson hate week officially starts now. I gassed him up as much as I could, put him on the studs list because I'm a good guy. But Doug, I hope you fall off the toilet while you're shitting on it. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Another great game for between the Bills and the team. We got Bills and the Ravens. Does Lamar's hot streak end here, or do the Bills continue to fall?
Lamar is awesome, but I think that they're going to get a couple of these defensive players back for the Bills. Bills need this win after losing to the Dolphins. I think the Bills win this.
Yeah, same thought process. I think the Ravens are going to cool off a little bit against a super strong defense, even with some injuries. I'll take the Bills. Next game, Cardinals at the Panthers. I think the Cardinals need this game. Panthers are still a weird team. Don't know if they're garbage. Don't know if they're just bad. But yeah, I'll take the Cardinals.
I wanted to take I took the Panthers in the beginning of the season to make the playoffs. I'm not seeing that. I think the Cardinals still are good. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's a long season, but the Cardinals are better than the Panthers are right now. So let me get the Cardinals.
Alrighty. Next game we have is the Broncos at the Raiders. God damn it. So it's your pick first, but
I thought the Raiders were a good team coming in this year. They've severely disappointed me, obviously being 0-3. The Broncos are offensively hurt my eyes. So I'm going to take the Raiders. They're going to win this one.
I said in the beginning I wasn't going to pick the Raiders again until they won. So I think I got to stick with that. So I'll take the Broncos.
Fair enough.
Normally I would have taken the Raiders here because of I can't imagine them being 0-4, but whatever. Then we got Patriots at the Packers. Do we get an upset in Lambeau?
You know what? The Patriots don't look good. They gave up a lot of points to the Ravens, and then they lost to, I think, was the Steelers the week before. They don't look good at all. I'm going to take the Packers here. The Packers have some issues, but the Patriots look awful.
Yeah, no, I'm taking the Packers as well. Sunday night game, Chiefs at the Buccaneers. Wow. All the Chiefs and the Bills both go on and have to play against two tough opponents, so that'll be interesting.
This Super Bowl rematch, but I think this turns out in the other team's favor. I think the Chiefs get a good bounce back here. The Chiefs have bigger issues coming off this past week than the Buccaneers do. Buccaneers have an excuse with the injuries. The Chiefs need to win this.
All right. And last game, Rams at 49ers. I'll take the Rams.
Yeah, Jimmy G's still finding his way. Give me the Super Bowl champs.
All right. And with that, we're about at our limit. So go Birds and catch you on the flippity flip.
See you later. Best team in the NFC.
Peace out.